Alright, here's my take on the classic red burn deck. Let me know in the comments of anything you'd switch out. First off, you can't have a red burn deck without 4 copies of Lightning Bolt. 3 damage to any target at any time is just the best. Chain Lightning is just a silly sorcery lightning bolt that lets the target copy it, but for red, it's, I don't know, it probably won't happen, but there are 4 of these. Skewer the Critics is the same damage for the same price as Sorcery Speed, but only if we've already dealt some damage, or you can pay 3 regular cost. There are 4 of these. Similarly, 4 copies of Lava Spike do roughly the same thing, but it's 3 damage only to players or planeswalkers, and it's at sorcery speed. Still fantastic though. Now, Searing Blaze does 1 damage to a player and a creature that player controls, but if you had a land enter this turn, it deals 3 damage to each instead. I can't believe how cool this one is. There have got to be 4 of these, of course. Another one that everyone loves is Fire Blast. It's so good there had to be 4 copies. It's got 4 damage to anything for essentially free, and you could pay 6 mana for it, but when we've got 2 extra mountains lying around, why pay for it? I personally like this one, but I could see how others might not. Thunderous Wrath deals 5 damage to any target, but again, for 6 mana, you're probably not going to cast it. However, if it's the first card you draw in the turn, with its miracle cost, you could potentially only spend 1 mana on this sucker. It could be a very dead card for a long time, which is worth noting, so there are only 2 of these in the deck. Moving on to some creatures, there are 4 copies of Voldarin Epicure. It's a 1/1 for 1 that enters to deal 1. Easy peasy. It also makes a blood token just in case we need to draw and discard later in the game. You can discard that last card if it's just dead in your hand. Erebor Flamesmith is basically Baby Gutter Snipe that deals 1 damage to each opponent whenever we cast an instant or sorcery. This could go off a bunch, so there are of course 4 of them. And speaking of Gutter Snipe, there are 4 in the deck. It was printed as a common in Commander Masters, and it's a very welcome addition to Pauper. Again, instants and sorceries will let it shoot each opponent for 2 damage instead of just the 1. Finally, there are 4 copies of Reckless Impulse for the extra cards we'll need that red seems to lack. It's fantastic for this sort of deck, and I love seeing it around. As for lands, there are 18 mountains in the deck. No need to muddle it up with other stuff. On the sideboard, we'll find 4 End of the Festivities, which deals 1 damage to our opponent's creatures, as well as 1 damage to them. Smash to Smithereens destroys an artifact and deals 3 damage to its controller. There are 3 of these. 4 Red Elemental Blasts keeps blue decks at bay, 3 Tormod's Crypts keep graveyard decks at bay, and lastly 2 copies of Flaring Pain allow us to not be fogged, essentially. Well, that's it. It was a fast one, but that's what Burn likes to see. What would you swap out? Let me know in the comments below. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to all my Patreon subscribers, and thank you for listening this long. Make sure you join me next week for your weekly dose of magic.